With the release of 7.1, we finally got something many of us have been asking for. We finally got the Hall of the Intermediate. Or, well, Hall of the Novice's tactical training. Hall of the Novice for a long time has been called, well, bad. Hall of the Intermediate was just one of the multitude of things we wanted for it. Some advanced training for people to do proper learning of how to play. What we got is mechanics training, something a lot of newbies struggled with. Before the recent reworking of a lot of duties, stack markers and required content didn't exist until, well, Final Steps of Faith. It's actually really cool. It teaches nomenclature and the actual solving of these mechanics. Not quite to the level I would have liked them to do, but the final exams of each training are much more involved enough to be worthy of a basic overview. Then when it comes to the many other mechanics the game has, we have the built-in encyclopedia. Overall, it's a really good update, so I want to talk about Hall of the Novice and how it is still terrible. It's really bad. It does some good, but some of it is just objectively terrible. Cure is a useful spell after you get Cure 2 level of bad advice. Worse, actually. I want to point this out to really show everyone who didn't pay attention or have never done these just how bad some of this is. If you enjoy this video, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share it around. If you'd like, I also stream a bunch of different stuff on Twitch, including sometimes Final Fantasy XIV. I'm also on Patreon if you like that kind of supporting. If not, go follow me on Blue Sky, the much better social media site. Alright, enough of the self-plugs, let's get into the actual duties. Here's how we shall go through it. We're going to start with the stuff I have the least issue with, and slowly get worse. It will start with stuff that I think is good, or just a bit of a nitpick. Then we'll move on to the stuff that is terrible, getting worse as we go. It's no surprise that we start with the new stuff. They put a lot of work into it. It's a bit slow, but they gotta be slow for properly teaching you how these work. Low-level mechanics tended to have a lot of leeway, and higher level, very low leeway. But even this has some mistakes. Starting with the targeted AoEs, the NPCs spread out really far to ensure that their AoEs do not overlap at all. It's a very common mistake that people spread AoEs far more than they need to. AoEs slightly overlapping is okay. This isn't a nitpick, but a comment. When they do the line tank buster, they actually have an NPC take it if you are not a tank. If you are a tank, it actually will give you the line marker. This is good. Though I will say the enemy being all the way north is a bit weird for such a thing. Typically you do not have a boss north, but mid. Nitpicks, like I say. Then we have the homing attacks. These are so slow. Slower than any other instance of chasing AoEs in the game. Even the ones in Bardam's Medal are faster, and that would be the first instance, I'm pretty sure. There's slow, then there's too slow. Then comes the final exam. The game once again spreads you out instead of overlapping the AoEs at all. Otherwise, it's a pretty easy final exam, and you could do something silly with the chasing AoEs since they're so slow. Moving on to the second training, we have knockbacks, towers, and proximity markers. The issue is, it's 2 knockbacks and 2 towers, for 5 training sessions. I don't think we need to teach newbies the exact same solution twice for towers. Just show them that there are multiple tower types before doing the actual tower exercise. The knockbacks I can forgive, since not standing in the blue AoE is extremely important a distinction. They also don't fail you for using Surecast or Arm's Length. I genuinely expected it would, because it's on brand for Hall of the Novice. I also forgive it because the final exam is really good for combining the knockback with towers. You have forever to adjust, partly due to the game having to account for the AI, but it's a very important kind of mechanics combining, especially for players who want to get into harder stuff. So a passing grade, I'd say. A good sign as we go into the third and final training. We have some different tethers first, proximity and the kind you grab. Then comes gaze mechanics, which definitely is needed this early on. Then onto Esuna as its own topic, which has a problem. They do not immediately and outwardly point out the fact that a white line means you can Esuna it. This is something they should tell you right out of the gate. On the plus side, if you're the healer, they make you do the Esuna using, which means 4 uses in the final exam. It's otherwise a very basic final exam. It's good they made this part of the duty, so people know they need to Esuna some stuff. It's a bit late for Brayflox's long stuff, but you know. Completion of this third and final training gives us the Neophyte's Ring, an upgraded version of the ring from the first training set. The very early stuff gave a full set of left side gear, and a ring that increases EXP for battle classes and jobs up to level 30. Neophyte's is up to 60, and has stats that adjust based on your level, ensuring it is useful all the way up to level 60. This is extremely worth grabbing for the EXP boost at minimum. You can even wear this with the first ring up to 30. I'm not rating based on the awesome items you get though. I'm here to talk about these as a teaching tool. I say these are a passing grade. Some nitpicks, some changes I'd make, but generally solid at giving players an overview at some mechanics. The ability to look at the ones not in the exercises is huge, but unfortunately optional. So let's move into the old stuff. Surprisingly, they did update these. Some are brand new, and some just slightly changed and no longer count as completed. I can assure you, I have done all of these multiple times for checking a thing or such. So if a training is actually the same as before, it's weird if it was counted as not done. Tank is the longest series of tutorials, with a total of 8. The first exercise is the same across all 3 roles, essentially telling you to dodge AoEs. The final one is the final exam, so really 7. It has some fine duties, and some very bad advice. The first problem is on Lesson 2. Any attack that isn't the base combo is a failure. Ranged attacks are very, very powerful for grabbing mobs. For 1, it allows for positioning better than anything else. For 2, the enmity multiplier on it is very high. For 3, the wording of what he says is very, very bad. Sure, it's meant to teach the bare minimum of using a combo for enmity, but don't do anything else? It's really bad. Especially because we have defensives, and in the case of Marauder, Berserk. People can be odd creatures. They might assume that, because of this teaching, that they lose aggro by using other stuff. Do you? No, of course not. But in my time teaching people, there have been far more wild assumptions than that. Moving on, I noticed a bug. I think it has to do with me technically not having completed all the training. Clicking to go see the old stuff removes the button for the new stuff. I'll talk more about it later. Our next issue comes with the new AoE-based training. I actually failed this one once because every attack that does not hit at least 3 dummies is a failure. You can see I caught on midway and intentionally failed, but spamming at AoE, the correct way to AoE, is actually a mistake here. Plus the tomahawk use I did, despite it being the ideal start for initially engaging a group. This could be worse, as it's obviously teaching you to aim. But the problem is that enemies are very rarely ever in such a neat, tidy pile like these. Most groups will have 1 or more enemies spread out that you can't hit all of them at once. You need to do something to initiate the fight for them to group up at all. In practice, this is bad advice. I do not like it. Exercise 6 is another problem. Here's where they recommend doing ranged attacks for pulling mobs against a pack of 6. Multi-pulls and pulling wall to wall is so normal because they don't hurt. At the very least, they do not fail you immediately for pulling them all. They just slowly peck at you until the healer heals. You aren't in any danger. So, that's a plus. Would be terrible if they faked you being in extreme danger. But at the same time, the game just doesn't work like this. The worst is Aurum Vale, and even that doesn't have a group of mobs all in one spot. It's the frogs and their tongue pull. In the 7th exercise, we have a kind of a nitpick. We have good tips like Tomahawk for grabbing enemies from far away, but they also say to swap to Overpower only after getting every enemy. It's fine, since you can't say in only a few words, on 2 enemies use single target combos on both, 3 or more enemies use Overpower. Wait, I just did that. The enemies don't even live long enough to make use of Overpower. But that's tanks. It's still pretty rough, but definitely improved since before. Let's move on to healers. We have 5 total exercises, including the first one that is the same, and the final exercise. So basically no exercises, despite being a multifaceted role. Exercise 2, rather than engaging enemies, heal. There is no mention of also doing DPS when you can, when nobody is in danger. Failing grade 0 out of 10. Yes, your primary role is healing. It's not rather than. Especially in these early stages when it is easiest to learn how to DPS at the same time. Let me prove a point. A tank has around 600 HP at this level. and gear will heal 200 HP when in full gear synced down. And if you remove all gear except for your weapon, it's a swing of only 20%. 20% is in itself a huge swing, but the difference is maxed gear and no gear. The swing with gear you'll get naturally just from playing, closer to 10% at worst. And when people wall-to-wall even Sastasha without fear, a newbie healer with a newbie tank is going to be healing a single pulling tank. No danger, and often no need to heal ever. I have no problems with them saying it's your primary purpose. I have a problem with the implication it is all you do. Especially with how you can get white mages in World of Darkness who do nothing but spam Cure and Medica on full HP targets. I know full well that the design ethos is that healers do not need to do DPS at all outside harder content. This is intentional, so I know I'm asking for too much. As a compromise, remove the mention of damage. Just say your primary purpose is healing. Do not imply that damage is something to avoid. That much I cannot abide by. On the bright side, they do not punish you for doing DPS. I fully expected they would. It's also actually harder to heal these NPCs than it is to heal an actual dungeon. You heal as much as you do outside in terms of percentage, but enemies do way less damage outside. So in a way, this is also bad, but it's kind of a nitpick there. Same goes for the next exercise. 2 targets who both take a lot of damage. Not an impossible thing, but a bit misleading with the tank never going to get enmity. Guess it's showing how some tanks never pay attention. Now comes the bug again. This time is likely an actual bug, while the other one is likely intentional, if a bit weird. My button to swap to basic training just vanished. Likely because I finished the penultimate training while also completing a quote-unquote new exercise. I had to use the button for viewing all exercises to get back and see the final exercise, which we don't need to go over. Very little to talk about with this one, but gosh, the little we could talk about was bad. You can talk all you want about comfort and easing your way into doing damage, but in a game where the only healer class is Conjurer, and that leads into getting the best AoE skill in the game with Holy, you don't imply you ignore damage. That's just bad. And now let's move on to the final role, DPS. This has 7 duties including the basic dodge and finale exercises. But given healer I gave a failing grade, you can tell how bad this one is, can't you? Here's instance 3. Here's me using AoE. Here's me failing. No, 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 no. You do not actively discourage AoE. You do not program this that AoE is a failure. That is plain and simply bad. Sure, no DPS classes have AoE before 15, but what about, well, any other class? Let's take Archer and Bard. We have a dot here, and we should dot all the enemies. We get yelled at for this. Each foe dying under a focused assault has never been something you do normally. That's rare enough for bosses, let alone AoE situations. All enemies at once are equally a threat in 99% of all trash pools. I can think of 3 examples total, and even those are a stretch. Amdapor keep Hard's wall enemies, which summon more enemies who do no damage and have no HP. Temple of the Fist, with the walls that become more enemies, so killing those first leads to an overall faster clear. And those roaders in Tower of Zot, which you just AoE everything down here anyway. In all 3 cases, this was a wall-to-wall pulling kind of example. In Amdapor, those wall guys are all separate pulls. The walls in Fist don't spawn enemies unless you actively kill them, and the roaders are singular enemies. One group of enemies, a roader, then a second group of enemies. Even with accounting for the game not originally being built around wall-to-walls, that only makes these examples fall apart. When you consider Dawntrail, it's the exact opposite even. You have groups of enemies with 3 or 4 weak guys with 1 giant dude with sponge HP. You actively ignore the big guy until the crowd thins out. They make for poor main targets for AoE and will die last no matter what. When Hall of the Novice was created, this advice of prioritizing a singular target order was wrong. It's still wrong to this day. was designed even shifting radically in the opposite direction. And even if it had actual use cases, you would not focus target by default because of multi-dotting or other jobs having AoE. Even before, say, Dragoon gets AoE, a lot of other jobs have their own AoE. Tanks have AoE and that's enough. You don't need more AoE than that for spreading damage to be the correct course of action. At the least, you need a wall-to-wall pulling tank and something like Sastasha. You have few tools, they and the healer have few tools. Ensuring 1 or 2 enemies drop dead sooner than later can help counteract how bad Cure as a spell is. Whether or not people actually use Hall of the Novice and pay attention to its lessons, a bad lesson is still bad. The game doesn't teach you how to play is a common complaint that I don't entirely agree with outside of Hall of the Novice with how far people take it. Hall of the Novice giving bad advice is just proof of that point. On the same token, complaining people don't know how to play and then saying that this is fine are contradictions. You can't have it both ways. But that's really the main end of the issues in the Hall of the Novice. There's other nitpicks I could mention, but the biggest ones have been gone over now. When this is supposed to set the tone for players before even doing Sastasha, it needs to be done right. Advice that might be fine for the next 5 levels is not. But there are other issues I am concerned with. We have this new mechanics-focused thing. This is a huge step forward, but, and it's a huge but, I think we need Hall of the Intermediate still, if just for tanks and healers. The topics I feel are still very simple, like keeping bosses in the middle of arenas, maybe teaching the idea of openers since players think that anything below extreme is too easy to do openers, meaning people never get taught the idea of them. Intermediate is really a misnomer, when it's still basic info overall. We don't need perfection, but giving any amount of learning is still a good thing. Introduce the topics at the least. And then, I want it made required. Everyone should be forced to complete these to be allowed to use Duty Finder. Fix them up and make them required. Then there's no excuses, no saying the game doesn't teach players. We can worry about the game teaching how to play every individual job another time. What matters more is the basics, and we need those. Even in the just low-level trials, the basics are going to take you far. The basics should be learned before they're required. So yeah, that's the next step. Properly fix what is just blatantly wrong about how the game works, even when we are in A Realm Reborn. Hall of the Novice has just always given bad advice, and the older the game gets, the more wrong it becomes. Newbie, veteran, single pull, multi-pull, it doesn't matter. It's wrong, correct it. So some of the new stuff is cool, but there's still a long way to go. I care about teaching, I care about people attempting to understand. I'm not perfect, and neither is what we have here. What matters is pointing it out so it can be fixed. So I will harp on this point until it does get fixed. That's it for me. Again, do please follow me on my stuff. Join me in my Patreon if you really want to support me. I try to do monthly patron streams where I invite people to come do content. We just did some of the new Extreme this November. Otherwise, a like, comment, and sub are all free, as is a follow of my Twitch and Blue Sky. Though subbing on Twitch also involves money, so can't say that much. But either way, support is appreciated, no matter the form. Take care, and may the power of Anne and Nidhogg lay waste to your enemies.